Elon Musk's hand gesture, not as important as something else he did. More firings from Trump, thousands of troops deployed to the border. Trump wants to invest a lot of money into AI infrastructure, yet someone in his inner circle blasted him and his plan. Donald says he wants to restore freedom of speech. Or is this more of a muzzle against anyone who disagrees with him? Donald's decision on the World Health Organization, and he tells people involved to stop communicating with each other. In other words, shut the hell up. And TikTok, ready to announce a deal with someone to buy them? This should be interesting. And I'm going to offer some ideas and solutions for the listeners to get involved with, stay engaged, and hopefully will help you cope with what's going on in our country today. I have a lot to discuss with you today. This is A World Gone Mad. I'm your host, Jeff Allen Wolf, Season 2, Episode 55. Welcome back. I'd like to start off by thanking the loyal listeners from Facebook who are still following my podcast, thank you, and to the many, and I mean many people from Blue Sky who are joining me on a daily basis. A big giant tip of my hat, and thank you to everyone. Thank you for your emails, thank you for the phone calls, thank you for the many comments on Blue Sky. Those of you who are listening and are still part of Facebook, please join me on Blue Sky. If you're not sure how to do it, text me or email me. I'll give you the link and I'll help you out. A little bit of housekeeping first before I get to this episode. Two things. First, several people listened to the episode of A Dark Day in America. That was the episode before this one. And not to criticize me, but they wanted to point out how difficult it was to listen to. And I agree. I was not trying to be dark and depressing, but unfortunately, with Donald, it's hard to avoid. So again, my apologies to you for that. I just wanted to inform you what was going on day one of him officially being president. Another listener pointed out that they did not like that I called Trump by his first name, Donald, kind of giving him a dignified air, so to speak. And that's an honest observation. Let me tell you my thinking on this and how I come across on how I use Donald Trump's name. I pointed out that by using Donald's first name, for me, it's more a sign of disrespect. Think of it in terms of this. A doctor walks into the examining room, right where you are. His name is Dr. Smith. I don't call him Dr. Smith. I call him Mr. Smith, which is disrespectful. He's a doctor. Or I call him John by his first name. That's what I do most of the time. Instead of President Trump or Donald Trump, calling him Donald. To me, that's more disrespectful. Other than, of course, calling him Donald the Delusional One or Donald the Wannabe Dictator. Okay, housekeeping out of the way. Was Elon Musk's gesture a Nazi salute? Now, Elon Musk recently did a thank you to the crowds he was in front of by touching his heart and then throwing his arm out in a salute reminiscent of a Nazi Sieg Heil. But what a lot of people, at least those that I've come across, are not paying attention to. Now, some of you listeners may have already noticed this, but I want to reinforce my observation. Look at the video if you haven't seen it yet of Elon Musk. Pay attention not just to Musk touching his heart or extending his arm like the German Sieg Heil, but look at his face. There's anger. There's defiance there. You can't miss that. And that's what makes it worth noticing, and that's what makes it dangerous. Musk tried to explain it away, saying it was not a Nazi salute. Good, then touch your heart. Put your arm out to the crowd like you're throwing the love out from your heart, but not your face that looks so intense. Watch it if you haven't seen it. If you've seen it before, watch it again. Pay attention to his face, and then let me know what you thought. Trump's administration did another firing. They removed the commandant of the Coast Guard, citing border failures and her focus on DEI hirings. Now, the commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard has been removed from her position over, quote, leadership deficiencies and, quote, operational failures, end quote. A Department of Homeland Security official confirmed this to CNN. Now, in a list of reasons, quote, supporting her immediate removal, end quote, the official cited Admiral Linda Fagan's failure to address border security threats, excessive focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Additionally, the official said the Coast Guard suffered significant shortfalls in recruiting personnel under her leadership, but the Coast Guard actually met and in certain areas exceeded its recruiting goals for the first time in 6 years in October. Once again, Donald removing obstacles to his administration on ego and a whim, and because he sees certain people as a threat. Thousands of more troops were ordered to the U.S.-Mexico border. Thousands of additional active duty U.S. troops are being ordered to the southern U.S. border with Mexico, just 2 days after President Donald Trump mandated that the U.S. military step up its presence there, according to officials familiar with the matter. Now, there are already roughly 2,200 active duty forces at the border as part of Joint Task Force North U.S. Northern Command's border mission based out of El Paso, Texas. They help support U.S. Customs and Border Protection's work there, performing mostly logistical, bureaucratic tasks like data entry, detection, monitoring, and vehicle maintenance. It's not yet clear which specific units are being ordered to the border. Not that we do not need more personnel at the border. It just comes across as heavy-handed and Gestapo-like tactics from Donald Trump. The thought is understandable, but the way it's implemented and determined in this dictatorship-like manner, it just doesn't sit well with me. Trump announced recently an initiative and an investment that will create a new company called Stargate to grow artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States. Now, shortly after President Donald Trump announced his new massive AI infrastructure investment from the White House, his compadre, Elon Musk, tried to tear it down. They don't actually have the money, Musk wrote on his social media platform X. SoftBank has well under $10 billion secured. I have that on good authority. So question, Elon Musk, loyal follower, controller of Donald Trump, showing signs of defiance? How long does Elon Musk have before Trump says bye-bye to him? Now, Vivek Ramaswamy, if you haven't heard, is no longer part of the Musk-Ramaswamy made-up Department of Efficiency. Remember that? Because, get this, Trump stated that Ramaswamy was running for governor or some such nonsense. That's why Vivek is no longer needed here. We'll let him go to do what he needs to do. More pruning of the tree by Donald the delusional one. Do you recall Donald's first administration? Do you remember how many people resigned during the 4 years or outright fired by Donald? Do you remember the percentage? Rachel Maddow on our show during Donald's first administration had a hell of a chart on screen keeping track of all these firings or the people leaving the administration. And the chart each day was getting so massive that she had to shrink the text size on the screen so it fit. And the text became tiny where you couldn't read it. So percentage, did anyone guess? 85% of the people in Trump's first administration either left or were fired. So think about this. We have Ramaswamy gone. Musk is criticizing Donald. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Who's next? Here's one that's very important to pay attention to. and stay on this particular situation. One of President Donald Trump's first actions as he returned to the Oval Office on Monday was signing an executive order aimed at, quote, restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship of U.S. citizens, end quote. The order bans federal officials from any conduct that would unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American citizen and instructs the Attorney General to investigate if the Biden administration engaged in efforts to censor Americans. You heard me right. Right-wing media figures and some Republicans in Congress have for years decried what they claim are efforts by Democrats and technology platforms to censor their speech online. Let that sink in. Seriously? Isn't this the pot calling the kettle black? Isn't Facebook supposedly blocking Democrats from getting their messages across to the other Democrats? In my case, I know that for a fact. The clampdown on agencies, on military personnel, has already started. And who knows what he will do to the press and other people speaking out against Donald. Trump announces U.S. withdrawal from the World Health Organization. President Donald Trump announced Monday he is withdrawing the U.S. from the World Health Organization in a significant move that drew criticism from public health experts on his first day back in the White House. Trump has long been critical of the United Nations Health Agency, and his administration formally began a withdrawal from the World Health Organization in July 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic continued to spread. But 4 years ago, then President Joe Biden halted the U.S. exit from the body tasked with coordinating the international response to health emergencies in one of Biden's first actions after taking over the White House. Now, the text of Monday's executive order cites the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic that arose out of Wuhan, China, and other global health crises. Its failure to adopt urgently needed reforms, its inability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of WHO member states as reasons for their withdrawal from this organization. That's a big one, Trump told an aide as he began to sign the executive order, pointing to his 2020 decision and his belief that the U.S. was paying too much money to the organization compared to the other countries, right? Does this sound familiar? In 2020, Trump also consistently accused the organization of aiding China in allegedly covering up the origins of COVID-19 and allowing it to spread. Now, WHO, the World Health Organization, is a pretty essential organization. And with America's withdrawal because of Donald, it creates a political vacuum that only one country can fill. And that's China. Again, going back to Donald's one-note samba of him wrecking departments and people in charge to weaken our country further. And on top of withdrawing from the World Health Organization, adding insult to injury, the Trump administration directs health agencies to pause communications. Yeah, amid a deluge of executive actions, the Trump administration has directed federal health agencies to pause all external communications, such as regular scientific reports, updates to their websites, health advisories to the public, according to sources within the agencies. The initial orders were delivered Tuesday to staff at agencies inside the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, including to officials at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and National Institutes of Health, according to the Washington Post, which first reported this story. Now, the direction came without warning, with little guidance as to what exactly is covered, according to sources inside the affected agencies who asked not to be named because they were not authorized to share the information. The memo told health agency employees to have all documents and communications, including regulations, guidance, notices, social media, websites, and press releases, reviewed and approved by a presidential appointee before issuing anything. Wow. It also directed employees not to participate in any public speaking engagements without the White House's approval, and to coordinate with presidential appointees before issuing official correspondence to members of Congress or governors. Remember Donald with the injecting of the bleach to prevent COVID and going against Dr. Fauci and saying, oh, we can just do ultraviolet light to get rid of the virus? Donald's revisionist history to coordinate what happened then, which everyone was against him health-wise, to make himself look good now. No communications. They can't move, do anything without his approval. Censorship at its finest. There's no other way to look at this other than this is a censorship and a freedom of speech lockdown. And again, who's doing anything about it on the Republican side? No one that I'm aware of. No guardrails, no accountability, no one with a backbone or testicles to stand up to Donald, the delusional one. TikTok's parent company is in active discussions about a deal, board member says. It was hinted that Elon Musk or Larry Ellison, another billionaire, was in talks to buy TikTok. Again, things that benefit Donald's inner circle of billionaires and not our country, America. All right, your turn, the listeners. Tell me what your opinions are. You could reach me on Blue Sky. Join me there, everyone, if you haven't yet. Look for Wolf on the Air, all together, no spaces, on Blue Sky. And you should see me there associated with the podcast A World Gone Mad. Or email me, wolfpacklistener@gmail.com, WOLFPACK listener@gmail.com. Or the phone number, toll free, 833-399-9653. Toll free, 24 hours a day, just a voicemail service. Nobody's answering. Leave your comments. Don't forget your first name, city, state, country where you're listening from, and your comments. And join the Wolfpack, guys. It's free. To the first 250 people that join, you will be in for life, never to be charged for my podcast as we grow this. The Wolfpack. The link is on my profile on Blue Sky. If you need the link, email me, and I will get it to you. All right, between the comments, the texts, the phone calls, I get a lot of great feedback, and I also get sometimes a listener listening to this podcast who comes up with some interesting ideas. So I want to talk about some solutions to offer you, the listeners. It is dark, it's bleak, everything going on. We can't give up. We don't want to be hopeless. We don't want to just hide somewhere. So one of my listeners on Blue Sky, Eliana, offered the following, and this is what she wrote me. I listened to your podcast. It's informative. We need to promote solutions. Most people are not fighters. If we only make them sad or mad, they will do one of two things. They will give up or get armed. Well stated, Eliana. She came up with some solutions to the listeners on how to deal with what's going on and to stay active and engaged. So I'm going to read them off to you. Write them down. Pause the podcast. Text me if you want the full list. Eliana suggested support the ACLU. Support the Sierra Club. Support the Union of Concerned Scientists. That's a good one. Support Earth Justice. Fund small businesses. Focus on November 3rd, 2026, the midterms, and let's make sure we win. Engage the 60% of Americans, people in your inner circle and around you who did not vote. Try to get them over to understand how crucial it is for the midterms. Steal MAGA supporters. Now that's a hard one, but trying to convince some people who see what Donald is doing to this country now on a daily basis to reconsider their vote. Eliana also wrote the following to me: we need hope and cohesion. We need unity and a plan. I like what the climate movement is proposing, she said, as it is economically based and based on equality. Thank you, Eliana, for all these great suggestions. By the way, Eliana is also on Blue Sky. You could check her out. She has a great, big, engaged group. Type in when you go to Blue Sky, when you join, Give Hope, GIVEHOPE. No spaces, just all together, and you can find her and her group there. You'll hear from me in 2 days with another episode of A World Gone Mad. I'm your host, Jeff Allen Wolf. We need blue skies in a world turned bitter orange. Stay hopeful.